Carnegie Town Hall, the meeting will begin in 30 seconds.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our Sioux Falls City Council informational meeting. First meeting in December, and we have a rather nice agenda for today. Before we get into our presentations, we will go to Sioux Falls City Council open discussion. Councilor Erpenbach.
Am I first? Wow. I wanted to talk about the golf course contract resolution, which is on, I think it's the last item on our agenda at the 7 o'clock meeting.
It is, yes.
That would be item 36. Yes. I asked Dave Bixler to do some work because I read the contract and went, what? So Dave has been kind of hound dogging the finance staff, and he's put it down into kind of that level of understanding that even I can grasp. And so I just wanted him to kind of walk through that with us in a public forum so that we all could kind of understand those numbers. So,
You want to do that now, or should we finish open discussion?
that was going to be my open discussion.
That's your open discussion?
Asking him to do
Let's
that.
do that now,
So
then.
that would be awesome. Thank you.
You bet. Mr. Bixler, welcome.
Thank you. Dave Bixler, Budget Analyst, City Council. What I have here is the contract, and I broke it out by the budgeted income statement for the golf courses for 2015, and then the flow of the accounts through the flow of cash to the management account that's in part of the contract. There is gross revenues of $2.6 million. Of that, 20% is going to go to the management account, and then the other remaining amounts are going to cover cost of goods sold for merchandise and food and beverage, as you can see. Then there's maintenance expenses, pro shop expenses, employee expense. It gets to an operating loss of $520,738, and then that would be reimbursed from the management account to get to a break-even point, and then there is a make-whole payment of $43,000. Within the maintenance expenses, there is $50,000 for management fees for Dakota Golf Management for 3 years as they're going through the construction process. Then looking at the management account, first off in 2013, there's $70,000 to go towards lost revenue. Of that, 20% would be contributed to the management account, so that's the $14,000. In 2014, there will be a 20% contribution, but that hasn't been determined yet because we're not through with 2014. And then there's also the Airport Association, if it's not known what they would contribute, if they will. And then, of course, we'll have the reimbursement from the management account, which is yet to be determined as the books get closed on 2014. But so what I want to point out was that so for the make-whole payment, which is, I'm going to highlight it right there, and then you're going to see that that's going to take place through 3 different years. It's going to be through 2014, 2015, and 2016. So that's where those flow through on the management account agreement. Then there's the reimbursement from the management account, which is highlighted there, and that will be, that will be we're going to have the 20% contribution, and then that will fall into here. It's going to be here in 2015 and then 2016. So you'll see those transactions, that's where those transactions take place. And then finally, the reimbursement for the management account, and that takes place here, here, and it will be taking place here, but it is yet to be determined. So that is the mechanics of the contract.
So then if I might, Mr. Chair, just one of my questions to you, Dave, was about the appropriation. How much money were we going to add to this from tax dollars? And the answer to that is basically just the $75,000 that we have in the budget now. Is that correct?
Correct.
And
It'll be $75,000, well, $70,000 for the 2013 lost revenue. $75,000 is budgeted in 2014, and there's going to be additional dollars from the operating budget of Parks and Rec, and that's the, let's see if I can highlight it here. That's going to be these amounts right here. The $75,000 is what is budgeted. The $100,000 is what is hoped to be left over from operations that could be contributed to the management account. And then you'll see in 2015 that amount is there, and we do not know what the residual park dollars will be that will be contributed to the management account.
good. Thank you. I appreciate all your work on this. He's spent quite a bit of time with me, not only on the phone, but in person, and then spent a lot of time with finance staff as well, and I appreciate them letting me kind of be bullheaded about it and work through the questions, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
One more time, Dave. What are the tax dollars that'll be coming out, the total?
What will be coming out of the operations will be the $75,000 highlighted here. Mm-hmm. Then there's going to be leftover dollars if Parks and Rec comes in favorable to budget. Those dollars will be deposited in the management account as well, and that's the $100,000. And then going forward in 2015, we have $75,000 budgeted from the operations, from the general fund, and that's highlighted there in 2015. And then 2016, we don't know what the residual dollars will be that would be contributed to the management account as well.
If I may ask the question, then this is all predicated on the revenues being at $2.6 million.
Correct.
What if they're $2.3 million? Is more tax dollars? Are we going to be continuously feeding this contract?
Any payments made will be going through the management account, so it's predicated on the management account having a balance to pay off any shortfalls.
And the balance of that management account currently is, do we know?
I'm not sure what the current balance is.
Okay. And is that management account controlled by Dakota Golf Management or by the Parks and Rec?
I've been told it was controlled by the city.
By the city. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Anderson?
Dave, do you know, I guess we're looking here going into 2016, when is the completion date for the work that they're doing out there? Do we have any idea?
I don't know.
We've got it, if I may, we've got at least 2 more years on that to get the course worked on, because they're going to work on, as I understand it, they worked on the East 9, made that this year. Next year they're going to work on the North 9 and build that new hole and things up there, and then the western part of it will be the 3rd year. So we're at least 2 more years, probably 3, because they got to let the grass grow for a year before they can really play on it. So we're into 17. And I just wanted to also say this is awful close to being cauterized on this thing. You're starting to look real good with the pointers and the
Right.
lines.
Isn't that good? If I might, Mr. Chair, one of the things that we're voting on tonight is to extend that contract with Dakota Golf Management. And what it does is gives them a year of hopefully no construction, so that they're operating on full all the services are available, all of the amenities are available. The construction is done for the working year 2017, and then we would do the RFP based on that. That's my understanding of what's happening with the item tonight. That's a question we can certainly ask staff during the 7 o'clock meeting tonight.
The 221.
One other thing I want to point out is that there's $221,000 of capital investment that's already occurred that's going to be reimbursed, and that is going to come through at equal payments of $73,800 over 15, 16, and 17. That also comes out of the management account.
Okay. The Regional Airport Authority contribution, is that a one-time $14,000, or do we know what that dollar amount is?
I'm not aware of what those negotiations are.
So we don't have any idea what that contribution might be?
If there's a contribution.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes. Counselors, any other questions? All righty. Thank you very much, Bix. Other open discussion. Counselor Erickson.
Just wanted to just brief the council that not last Friday, I guess it was a couple Fridays ago, there was representation from the Economic Development Department, Brent O'Neill, Darren Smith, and then myself from the council went to an ad hoc committee meeting put on by the South Dakota Municipal League. And during that time, there was people from all over the state. We met in Oklahoma, and we discussed a lot of the challenges that every city kind of shares. The underlying theme a lot of the time was workforce development, affordable housing, and kind of money is always one, financials. So it was a great day-long meeting where we just kind of got to collaborate with other communities. Counties were also there represented, as well as many cities and a few other folks. So like I said, it was just a great time to collaborate, talk about the challenges of other cities. We were able to share what works for us and learn along the ways as far as what other cities are trying to do when it comes to TIFs and how some cities use them a lot more frequently than we do, as well as many other things. So just wanted to share that with you. It was a great time, and learned a lot while we were there. So if anybody has questions, I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, I know Darren Smith is also here, and he can share his 2 cents if he'd like.
Just for clarification, you said Oklahoma, not Oklahoma, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a quick drive.
Other Counselor Jameson.
2 items. The other day I had somebody ask if there was a way to contribute to funding or supporting the Falls Park lighting, Christmas lights that are down there. They just had a wonderful experience there, and they wanted to contribute, donate something to it. And I said, well, I'd take the money and give it to somebody, but they thought we should have something there for individuals who were wishing to just voluntarily contribute. I think that the city would see a huge return, but this guy was so happy and so thankful for the experience that he asked me to ask you, ask us, and think about if there was a way we would want to try to recapture any funds from anybody who is willing. How would we do it? There are people out there who want to help make sure that that continues to be a asset in our community, and I don't know if there is a place. If he just wants to write the City of Sioux Falls a check, I suppose Tracy would take it. But I think if there was maybe a charity that was involved, and it sounds like there's a lot of people who are willing to give, I guess. There's a lot of people happy with what they experienced there. So throw that out. The other one is that on November 20th, we did have a UDC meeting. UDC is Urbanized Development Commission meeting. Kermit, Kenny, and myself were there. Just a few highlights. Steve Metley was re-elected as the chair of that committee. He does a fine job. It cannot be an elected official, so that's why Steve is graciously volunteered and has been doing that job. Let's see, there was a highway safety report. It talked about how and where all these accidents that occur in the state, why they are and where they are, and what could be done in the future to help make our roadways safer. One of the thoughts was the center rumble strip. You know, you have them on the side of the interstates, maybe one in the middle center line to help people stay in their line. Drive by braille, I guess, would be some of the comment. But anyway, that was part of it. The other one was a comprehensive, another part was some realignment to Highway 100 off of Interstate 90, you know, coming south. They're having just a little trouble exactly where to line it up based on some environmental issues, I should say. But it seems like they've got it narrowed down, but they've had to move it a little bit, not much. The other one is that there was a comprehensive growth plan for Brandon. Nice outlook for their future out to 2035. Brandon is a great growing community, lots of opportunities there. Coincidentally, I did ask if the sewer system in their city would inhibit their growth in any way, and it is not seen as a challenge for them. They will grow with or without the connection to the City of Sioux Falls or Lewis and Clark. Apparently they have all kinds of water available to them in that region due to some of the aquifers there. But anyway, quick summation of the UDC meeting. If you got further questions, you want more details, ask one of us, or I've got all the details here too. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Jameson. Questions? Other public input? All righty, I have a couple of things. First of all, just recognize Dave Bixler for the work that he did on that golf contract. You know, he is our resource to ask those questions that we all have, and we should be going to him instead of a lot of times trying to ferret it out on our own. So just a good job an attaboy to Dave for doing what he did there, because it really does boil it down for a lot of us so we can make good, informed decisions without 8 of us chasing people down and asking repetitive questions. So just to recognize that. A couple other things. In February, during the legislative session, we are a member of the South Dakota Municipal League, and on Tuesday, February 3rd, is their day at the legislature, and an invitation went out, and I think almost everybody expressed an interest, as far as I'm aware, in attending that day. So that would be the first Tuesday in February. We'd have to look at moving our meeting date to Monday then, February 2nd. Concerns about doing that? We'd have to do it by, I believe, resolution to move it to that date, so just for that one time. So as a heads up, February 2nd then will be in Monday, the first Monday will most likely be our weekly council meeting so that we can attend that meeting in Pierre. Couple other things. I gave you a high-tech new seating chart, so I think it's all very comprehensive, and we'll start that. We'll start that next week. If you have any questions, read it in a mirror, yes. Yeah, upside down in a mirror, yeah, you'll get it, yeah. It's very complex, a little cryptic. But yeah, so next Tuesday we'll have new seats, so sometime over the course of the week, kind of get a box and move. There is no vote required on that. It is something, I think Councilor Jameson started it several years ago, and it just gives us the opportunity to sit besides our different peers, and so we don't get stale and we have always ideal sharing. Councilor Erpenbach?
Don't move the drawers, remember. Only move the stuff out of the drawers.
Yeah, the drawers are not interchangeable. They are, so you'd have to get your stuff out of the drawers. So, and the last thing then is no fiscal meeting after today's meeting. We'll go from this to our 7 o'clock regular council meeting. And with that, we will begin our presentations today, starting with Director Tracy Turbach, our October monthly financial report.
Good afternoon. Yes, and again, thank you for having me here. I enjoy coming over here every month to give the monthly update, and it's always interesting to see what's on your minds as it relates to the city's financial results and condition. So, for the most part, we'll talk about economics here locally. The latest information on the unemployment rate continues to be very, very good. It had ticked up a little bit in August, back down to 2.7% in September. And I think just the other day, the October numbers came out after this report was put together, but it did drop a little bit more in October. I believe it's down to 2.5%. Now the 2.7% rate in September compares to 2.9% a year ago and 3.4% 2 years ago in September. So it gives you an idea of kind of how we've progressed over the last few years. Building permits continue to run very, very strong this year. Through October, the value of permits issued for 2014 were a little over $522 million. At that point, it was running at about 97% of what we had issued in 2013 through October. So we can see it's, again, running very, very strong. It's actually about 136% of what 2012 was, so 36% ahead of 2012. And if you had a chance to look at your report for November, you'll see that next month when I'm back, I'll be telling you that we actually have exceeded last year's year-to-date figure through November. Through November. So it's, again, a very, very solid year for construction activity. Sales tax, looking at our general sales tax revenues over the last 12 months, we've seen growth of 5.6%. We've budgeted, of course, for the 2014 calendar year, we budgeted 5% growth, so we're certainly on track to hit that budget number. And you can see on the chart here, 1 year ago we were growing at 7.6%. 2 years ago it was at 5.2%. So it continues to hover right around that 6% growth rate. Entertainment taxes ticked up a little bit this month. We're at growing at 5.8% over the last 12 months. Again, here we budgeted 2014 for a 5% growth rate, and so we're certainly expecting to be able to hit that target this year. You can see a year ago we were growing at 5.3% and 2 years ago at 6.9%. So this also has been hovering somewhat around that 5 to 6% for most of the last 2 years. Looking at our general fund revenues and expenses through October, 83% of the year has lapsed. So we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year. Revenues through October, we're at 72% of budget. Last year we were quite a bit ahead of that. We were at 77%. That's largely due to the FEMA reimbursement that was not part of the 2013 budget, but we had recognized some of that revenue by this point last year. For the 2014 fiscal year, and you'll see in your written monthly update in the very first page of it, we included some projections through the end of this year so you can get a feel for what we think or what we expect to see by year end in terms of revenues and expenses. We are projecting general fund revenues to come in at about $1.5 million over our 2014 budget. So we're certainly pleased to see that coming in a little bit above budget. On the expense side, year to date, we've expended through October 80% of our 2014 budget. Last year, we were running a little bit below that at 78%, and that's really has as much to do with timing of payrolls as anything. This year, we had there are always 2 months during the year where we have 3 payrolls. October happened to be one of those months this year. Last year, the way the days of the month fell, it was in November, so that will wash out by the end of November, that effect will. The overall general fund projections, as I mentioned in the kind of the discussion in the front of the report, you'll see we're projecting that we'll use some of our general fund balance this year, about $500,000. That can certainly be impacted over the last several weeks of the year here with snow removal costs, depending on where those come in. If we don't get a lot of snow, we may not use that much. If we get a lot of snow, we may use more of our fund balance. It's really dependent upon the weather once we get to this point in the year. If the projections hold up as we've laid them out in your report, we will end the year with a fund balance in the general fund of a little over 32% of our current year's budget. So again, very, very solid ending position for our fund balance as expected. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions you folks have.
Questions from the council? Councilor Anderson Jr.
Tracy, on our railroad relocation, do we have any updates on that? What's happening? Any expenses on that right now?
I don't have any update information to share.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Jameson.
If I could, on a non-related topic, ask Tracy a question regarding an item that's on tonight's agenda. Item 4, there's, Tracy, we talked just briefly about an item that's, I've got a question that somebody called me on. I did have a chance to talk to the police chief. There's 2 motorcycles that are getting traded in, and on the, essentially they're being labeled as surplus items. It shows a book value of 0. I did have a conversation with the police chief. There is like a $7,800 value actual on each of these motorcycles that are getting traded in. But on our book, on our accounting system and through the chief, he thought that there was some probably better accounting explanation of why it shows a 0 value. And the other part is this total station. What is that? Just to share with you, that's it's like a survey equipment that the police department uses to document a traffic accident or major crime scene or something. It's just a system. It's called Total Station. They've gotten a new one, and this is a trade-in value for that. But I just asked if Tracy could maybe explain the 0 value on the books and why it's done the way. People asked, how could they be worth 0? The 2008 Harley-Davidson surely should be worth more. I didn't know the answer, so if Tracy could help maybe explain it, I think it would alleviate some questions later.
Please.
I'd be happy to. And I suspect the 0 value is coming from there's a form that gets completed and circulated when we've got surplus property that we're going to dispose of. And that goes through an approval process and review process. And that form includes a description of the asset, and one of the additional items on there would be a statement of the book value of the property. And the book value is really just an accounting term of what's left of the undepreciated value of the asset. And we depreciate all of our assets on a straight line basis. And for example, if it's a $100,000 asset and it's got a 10-year life, we would take $10,000 of depreciation each year for 10 years, so that at the end of 10 years it would have a 0 book value. That doesn't mean the asset has no market value. It could certainly have a market value, and in this case with the motorcycles, they have a 0 book value, but apparently do have a market value that we will recoup it through the trade-in process.
Councilor Anderson.
Then is the budget adjusted with that market value once you've moved that surplus item on?
The budget would be affected by the market value of an asset if it's traded in by the fact that we only have to spend that much less out of our budget. So if we're buying a $100,000 asset and we're trading in an asset that has $10,000 of value, our budget would be impacted by $90,000. I don't know if that addresses your question, but that's essentially would be the impact on the budget of a salvage value of an asset.
And we do that with all surplus items, especially like the ones that we end up selling in the auctions and everything?
The ones that get sold in the auction, then when they're sold and the cash comes in, that's essentially a miscellaneous revenue to the city. And that goes
back in the general fund.
It goes back into if it's a general fund asset, it would go back into the general fund, right? If it's not, it would go into the fund that owned the asset.
Councilor Rolfing.
This may sound dumb, if you will, but let's make sure that people know we're not buying $100,000 motorcycles, right?
No.
Okay.
That was just a
I'm sure
hypothetical asset of any kind. It can be whatever you want it to be.
Any other questions on the budget? Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate it. Our next presentation will be the 2025 Downtown Plan, and Dustin Powers with our Economic Development Office will be here to present this for us.
Surprise guest.
And Mr. Cooper, of course.
Mike Cooper, Planning and Building Services. We're actually going to team up today to kick this off, and to get us started, I'm going to look back, take you back to the year 2002, which was the last time we got together to look at what the future vision should be for downtown Sioux Falls by the year 2015. Back at that time, through that process, we identified 7 major goals that we wanted to focus on. Things like enhancing the aesthetic appeal of downtown, integrating the Big Sioux River with Falls Park, encouraging private investment in redevelopment areas, investing public resources to stimulate economic development, developing downtown as the center of arts, culture, and entertainment, encouraging the rehabilitation of historic buildings, and then looking at an effective transportation system, which included everything from parking to transit to sidewalks. Well, think about how much downtown Sioux Falls has changed since 2002. We did Phillips to the Falls. We've started the Big Sioux River Greenway Master Plan implementation. The river ramp was removed and redevelopment along the east bank of the Big Sioux River. We've done streetscape enhancements, including Phillips Avenue, 6th Street and 8th Street areas. We've done a number of facade easement program, which has helped redevelop downtown buildings, both historic and non-historic. Sculpture walk and the outdoor dining. Think about how much that has changed the downtown. The East Bank development. The establishment of a downtown and business improvement district. And I think you have an item on the agenda tonight. The expanded main library downtown. Some of you may not remember all the debate we had about should we move the library out of downtown. The renovation of the historic Orpheum Theater. So all of those things and many, many more have changed the look and the character of downtown since 2002. And so as we look at what downtown is today, we have roughly 100 square blocks of land area. We have over 15,000 people that work downtown, and that's growing. We have over 2,200 people that live downtown, and that's growing. We have a number of businesses, hundreds of businesses, expanding, changing, relocating. And we have over 36 special events within downtown every year. And if you follow, periodically there'll be interviews of people asking, what do they like or not like about Sioux Falls, and always asking about what can we do to encourage more of the younger demographics to come to Sioux Falls or stay in Sioux Falls. And in virtually every case they mentioned it's important to have a very strong, vibrant downtown. So as we've looked at the 2015 in the past and what we've accomplished, that plan is now coming to an end. And so how do we look into the future to establish what the next vision should be for Sioux Falls? What should be the priorities of downtown for the next 10 years? And to talk about that, next I'll introduce Darren Smith.
Thanks, Mike. Darren Smith, Director of Community Development, and we'll get to the main show here, Dustin, in a moment. This was an interesting experience for me, and one I took very serious because being a part of this, I was just a very small part of the 2015 plan that was put together back in 03 and 04 when I was sitting in your seat, so seeing it from a different perspective. But the takeaway for me at that time, and then again years later, was we and others do lots of plans, we put lots of documents together, but if you look back at that 2015 plan, that's not one of those that just got put on a shelf and ignored, and that happens a lot. But it didn't with that, and you heard the long list that Mike just rattled off all those accomplishments, and a lot of those things were in the 2015 plan really for the first time that somebody wanted to see accomplished in the years ahead. So we feel the same about the 2025 plan that you'll get a presentation on today and be asked to approve next week. One of the things I wanted to touch on was just to focus on the things we said we would do with this plan and make sure you understand that, in our opinion, we did all of those things and then some, specifically referring to public input and getting the public, not just downtown, but throughout Sioux Falls and even throughout the region, more involved as far as their input and feedback in putting this plan together. So I wanted to touch on just a few of those. We actually have this board over here that I think you can see and the others in the audience can see. This is actually the board, one of two or three that we showed on an easel the day we had a press conference to launch this effort almost exactly 14 months ago in October of 13. So we had highlighted these 5 things here: citizen work groups, community-wide input, professional facilitation, as well as professional market analysis, and then the Citizen Advisory Committee. I just wanted to touch on this so you know what we did and what went into putting this plan together. We said there would be a 13-member Citizen Advisory Committee appointed by the mayor and approved by the City Council, and there has been. We said there would be citizen work groups, and there were 13, and they were the following: Parks and Recreation, Parking, Economic Development, Health and Wellness, Land Use, Streets/Infrastructure/Traffic, Design and Streetscape, Transit and Commuting, Residential Living, Public Safety, Historic Preservation, Arts and Entertainment, Tourism and Hospitality. Those were the 13 work groups. We had more than 100 volunteers participate in those 13 work groups, and collectively there were more than 50 meetings held where they discussed those things that were most important to them and they felt most important for downtown and the community. We said there would be community-wide input. We held 5 meetings. I think 2 of them were downtown, 3 were actually outside of downtown in community centers and other locations. We had about 150 attendees at all of those meetings combined. We had 1,763 online surveys returned with feedback, 153,449 Facebook impressions. So online surveys and Facebook impressions, I don't even know that those were tools at our disposal in 03 and 04 with the 2015 plan. Certainly not at the level they are today, and that was a big part of getting feedback. Going beyond that, staff and volunteers as part of this effort were at multiple public events soliciting input, things like farmers market on more than one occasion, just having a table and soliciting input and feedback and giving a form that could be filled out and so forth. Farmers market, a downtown Santa Claus event. Dustin spent a weekend at the Benson Flea Market soliciting input and feedback. A community healthy living conference, the community winter activities fair, and more. So we tried to get everywhere we could to get feedback. We said there would be professional support for this effort beyond city staff, and there was. We had professional facilitation involved with this effort. We had a professional market analysis done that I think was excellent. We said there would be ongoing communication with the public so they could stay apprised of the progress of this planning process, so we established a dedicated project webpage on the city's website at siouxfalls.org/2025-downtown. And you can still go and the public can still visit that site to see what's going on with the plan and the final result. What came of this process and all this outreach was a plan that you will see includes 57 goals and 229 action items. And Dustin's going to elaborate more on that. So before Dustin comes up, one of the things I want to make sure we do is you have a 60-some page document in front of you, a lot of good information, but it really just scratches the surface of the effort that went into this over the past 14 months. And there were a lot of volunteers and others, but I do want to recognize and commend Dustin in particular. I mean, he poured his heart and soul into this thing and just did a fantastic job. I mean, he has been living, eating, and breathing this for 14 months. And again, I just think he's done an outstanding job, been very organized, It was his idea to go to farmers market and flea market and all these other places. He had been on board with the city in our office all of a few months when he tackled this, and so I just think he's done a great job, and I want you guys to know just how much time and effort he put into this, as well as a lot of other people. So, Dustin, why don't you come up and tell us what's in this?
So if I'm correct, then Mike Cooper, the old guy, gave us the history, and you're the new guy with the future vision. Is that correct?
That's where we're going to go with that. Dustin Powers with the Community Development Department. We're going to go through as quickly as we can, the long document that you have in front of you with the 2025 downtown plan. Darren did a great job of summarizing the public engagement process that we went through, and so I'm going to skip a first few of my slides here, just so that we can move things along. But one thing I did want to note is Darren indicated that we have 57 goals and 229 action items in the plan. That's not correct. That's how many were recommended by our citizen work groups, and that's a lot of things to accomplish in a 10-year period. And so what those were those community aspirations. Those were all the goals and recommendations we received from those 13 citizen work groups, and all the input that we received through the online survey and all those meetings we held. And so we've actually narrowed that down, and the plan will show you that we have 13 goals and 58 action steps over the next 10 years to achieve. After all the community aspirations we received through the public engagement, as Darren indicated, we hired professional services for our market analysis to be done. And that goes further into detail in the plan and really summarizes it well for you. But we hired Progressive Urban Management Associates out of Denver, Colorado to do this market study, and they looked at the three major market segments of downtown, being residential, retail, and office. And what they looked at is they did potential projections for the next 20 years in downtown Sioux Falls, and they showed their recommendations of growth over the next 20 years. And so they showed that there's a potential to generate 1,900 to 3,200 residential units over that 20-year period. There's opportunity for about 200,000 to 400,000 square feet of retail space over that next 20 years, and then also about 1 million square feet of office space that could potentially grow within downtown Sioux Falls over the next 20 years. Now, obviously, our plan is only planning out for the next 10, but their projections went beyond that, and so we did take all those things into consideration. So we looked at those community aspirations from the public engagement, and then we established kind of a market reality with that market study that we had completed for downtown Sioux Falls. One of the other things that the market study looked at was kind of these global trends that they're seeing nationally in downtowns across the United States. And what Progressive Urban Management Associates did is they kind of pulled out the top 4 that they believe fit well within downtown Sioux Falls. And I want to share these because when we go through the goals, you'll really see how these are laid out within the 13 goals that were established within the plan. The first is that changing workforce that we have. We're seeing a lot of those baby boomers retiring. We're seeing a lot of young millennial professionals coming into the workforce, and that's going to be a demographic that's really important because both of those demographics are looking for places to live and continue to work in downtown, high-dense populated areas. Shifts in mobility. As we see those baby boomers moving to downtown as well as those young professionals, they're looking for different ways to get from one place to the other. More and more people are riding bikes or walking to work than there were in the past. People are still getting to work via vehicle, but there's a number of different shifts in mobility that are happening, and you've seen us try to adopt some of those here in downtown Sioux Falls. We'll have to continue to do that. A residential renaissance. As you've seen over the last 2 to 3 years, we've really seen an increase in residential development in downtown. That's happening all across the nation in downtowns, and we're going to continue to see that in downtown Sioux Falls. And then healthy places. How does the built environment help affect your health and your healthy lifestyles as you live in or work or play in that area? And so what are ways in which we can translate healthy living into the built environment? Once we looked at all the market realities through the market study process, we then looked at kind of the physical framework of downtown Sioux Falls. And we have kind of three categories here, three maps that we looked at when we started looking at downtown. And first is, what are those activity centers of downtown? So what are the activity drivers? What get people to downtown Sioux Falls? And we labeled those as our current activity centers, our employment centers, and our emerging centers in downtown. So Falls Park, the East Bank, the Phillips Avenue area, the River Greenway are kind of those activity centers that are currently driving people to come visit downtown. But then we also have in our employment centers, so kind of that downtown core where all the financial institutions and our large employers are, but also the county campus to the north has a lot of employees up in that area as well. So those activity centers and those employment centers are really what drive people to come to downtown Sioux Falls today. And then we also labeled what are kind of emerging centers that could be emerging in this 10-year period. And so we've seen some growth in the Phillips to the Falls area up north of 6th Street. And we've seen some redevelopment opportunities happen on the southern edge along 14th Street where blighted single-family homes have started to be redeveloped. But then we also have the rail yard that would be a big asset for downtown within this 10-year period. So those are kind of those emerging activity centers that we'll see within this period. We looked at the connections, so what this looked at was all the streets, the bike lanes, the pathways that we have, and ways in which you can get around in downtown Sioux Falls. What we did then is we looked at the collective framework, we looked at those connections, so where are those streets, but then also looking at those pedestrian pathways and bike lanes, sharrows that we have in downtown. So how can you get to these activity centers via all modes of transportation, and we looked at where future connections could be made with bike routes or pedestrian routes throughout downtown. The last thing in the physical framework looked at possible development sites within downtown. We looked at development areas, which are larger areas that have more acres of land to develop, but then also kind of development sites, but then we also labeled our surface parking lots within downtown, because as downtown continues to grow, as it starts to fill in with development, those surface parking lots are a great opportunity for redevelopment going forward. So we looked at kind of those community aspirations, we looked at the market reality, and we looked at kind of this physical framework of what downtown looks like today. And then what we do is we get into our action plan. So this is going to get into our goals and recommendations for the plan. What we did is we categorized these into three different categories. The first being economy. So these are initiatives or goals that attract jobs, new businesses, and investment to downtown. The second category is environment, which are initiatives to improve the public atmosphere and the built environment within downtown. And then the third was experience, which are initiatives or goals that activate, celebrate, and maintain downtown Sioux Falls. And so we're going to go through those 13 goals. First, starting with the economy. The first one is stimulate economic growth through strategic use of public resources and attracting private sector investment. This was a goal that was kind of a couple goals, I think, in the 2015 plan. But as we look at the River Greenway and how the public-private partnerships have worked with the development along there, we want to continue to see that happen within downtown Sioux Falls, not just along the River Greenway, but throughout downtown. Increase the residential base and encourage a greater diversity of housing options. As we've seen, there's an increase in residential demand in downtown Sioux Falls today, and we're going to continue to see that. But as we continue to increase that base, let's look at the diversity of housing options that could be available as well. Promote and market downtown as a great place to live, work, and play. We do a great job at making downtown as vibrant as possible, but how do we promote that to attract more development, more businesses, more employees, and more residents to downtown Sioux Falls? Maintain and manage an effective public parking system. As we continue to see increases in employers and employees in downtown as well as residents, we need to have a public parking system that will support the needs of downtown Sioux Falls, and so managing that is very important going forward. So those are the four goals that are under the economy section of the action plan. The next section is the environment. The first goal being improve the mobility and infrastructure for all modes of transportation to and within downtown. And as I stated earlier, these are all starting to relate back to those market trends that we're seeing nationally, but we're really starting to see them here in downtown Sioux Falls as well. So looking at ways in which we can look at alternative modes of transportation in downtown. You saw an instance of this when we did the Main Avenue Road Diet and looking at ways in which we can incorporate different ways to create transportation routes in downtown Sioux Falls. Protect and encourage historic preservation. The history of downtown is very important. There's a character to downtown that we want to preserve. And so looking at how to preserve those historic assets that we do have in downtown Sioux Falls. Develop design standards that enhance the aesthetic appeal of downtown. We currently have some design standards for downtown Sioux Falls that were drafted back in 1995, and so those have become a little bit outdated. As we've started to see more and more new development happening in downtown Sioux Falls, we're creating a new vision within the downtown plan, so it's time to create that vision through our design standards as well. Improve connections and wayfinding to and within downtown. Obviously, as individuals like ourselves that work here, come downtown regularly, we know how to get around, we know where those places are, we know how to get to a parking ramp, we know how to get to the pavilion. But if you're a visitor or someone new to town, how do you find those destinations? And so a great example of one way that's we have started this was a couple months ago there was some street wrapping around some utility boxes in downtown Sioux Falls that have great wayfinding tools to tell you how to get from the different attractions in downtown Sioux Falls, and continuing things like that, apps for our parking structures, things like that we've started to incorporate, continuing to incorporate those so individuals can get to the destinations that they're wishing to get to. And then the last goal under environment is ensure that downtown continues to be attractive, safe, and clean. As we continue to grow, this is going to be an item that's going to be very important for downtown Sioux Falls. We do a great job at it now, but we want to continue that going forward. And our last section is experience. So these are all goals related to the experience of downtown. Create a visitor-friendly atmosphere with attractions and events during all 4 seasons. And I think the most important part of that is during all 4 seasons. One of the biggest discussions we had throughout all of the work groups, our advisory committee, the public comments, is that how do we really promote and activate downtown during our winter months. Many cities do a great job at doing that, and we have a number of activities that we do during those winter months, but how do we continue to promote that and really activate and embrace those winter months here in Sioux Falls? And so that's a goal that was very highly recommended as we move through our engagement process. Expand recreational opportunities through new and enhanced parks. Obviously, downtown Sioux Falls is sitting on having a couple of the greatest assets we have here in this city with Falls Park and the River Greenway that's starting to develop. But we do have a number of other parks that are in downtown Sioux Falls that could be enhanced or change in use. One of the biggest thoughts that we heard was as we're increasing the residential base in downtown, more and more people are bringing dogs to downtown. And so activating some of those green spaces, maybe even bringing in a dog park or something that allows the opportunity for those recreational uses as well. Be the region's hub for arts, culture, and entertainment. This was probably one of the biggest items that was in the 2015 plan, and we've seen the expansion of the sculpture walk happen. We've seen the other arts and culture through the pavilion, the Orpheum Theater happen in downtown, and we want to continue to be that region's hub for all of those things going forward. And then promote active living, health and wellness in downtown. As we stated with those trends that are being global, or those national trends here in downtown Sioux Falls, we want to continue, as we continue to increase the residential base, the people working here, we want to have a healthy built environment to promote a healthy lifestyle here in downtown Sioux Falls. So those are the 13 goals. All of those goals have action steps related to those. And I just wanted to hit quickly on the implementation of all of these action items that were within the plan. What we did is there's 13 goals and 58 action items. We categorized those under 3 time frames. The first being quick wins, which are within 18 months we believe we can accomplish those action items. There's near term, which is 18 months to 5 years, and then there's long term, which is 5 years and beyond. And just a quick note about any of the action items that are within the plan. Many of those are spread throughout the time frames, and are currently being utilized or ongoing actions once they are started. So an example of that would be we're going to be looking at redrafting design standards for downtown. That's more of a near-term action item. However, once those design standards are adopted, it's a long-term implementation going forward. And so many of the action items can be, they may be a quick win, but they're something that would be implemented for the long term as well. And so we tried to categorize them as best as we could within that implementation phasing. With that, I am done with the downtown plan. I'm sure Mike or Darren or myself can answer any questions if you have those.
Okay, there's a ton of information here, so I'm sure we're all trying to get our minds around what you just gave us. A week's worth of studying in 30 minutes, so thank you very much, Dustin and Darren and Mike. It's, yeah. How long did it take you to put this together?
We kicked this off October 1 of 2013 was the kickoff. We've probably been working on drafting the plan for the last 6 months.
Okay, so a year's worth of work in this project here,
Yes.
so thank you. It is, several of us just came back from Austin at the National League of Cities Convention, and I see a lot of things in here that we talked about at our conferences down there, whether it be the younger millennials and so forth wanting to live and work, and yeah, very, very good. Questions from the council? Councilor Jameson.
Well, first off, a couple things. I would agree with the assessment. Dustin, I think you've done a fine job putting all this together, and it appears you're completely on top of it, so congratulations to you. I'm glad you're here. A couple of those global trends you talked about, things, I've sensed it as well with my own children, if I could. They're not as interested in cars as they are in technology and phones. And so this whole idea of being living somewhere where they can walk and ride public transportation or ride a bike or walk is you're right on, I think, from what I have learned. Even with our last UDC meeting, they talked about public transportation, and the willingness of others to embrace it is increasing. And the other modes of transportation, other than cars, have risen dramatically. And even to the point where the City of Sioux Falls probably needs to put a better effort into promoting our public transportation, because it's clearly a need or want. One other question I had was a couple. Downtown, I always thought that there should be some archways that when people enter downtown, they really realize that they've just entered downtown. Is that a part of your study or thoughts, anything like that?
Yes, under, and I am blanking on what goal it's under, but we did call out the gateways of downtown Sioux Falls. And actually, if you look at, and I can bring it back up here. So on this map here and on the following map, the purple circles identify gateways into downtown Sioux Falls. And as you look at, some of these have actually been already accomplished. If you look at like up by Raven, 6th Street there's a nice monument in the middle of the road. As things like that are things that we've talked about with those gateways coming into Sioux Falls. Now, whether they're arches or we have a nice archway, obviously, Phillips to the Falls to go to the Falls Park. But incorporating those, and these are kind of the high traffic areas to get into downtown as they enter downtown Sioux Falls. And so we did call out establishing these gateways as we move forward with projects within downtown.
A couple of things then real quick. Parades. When there are parades downtown, and we cross two main east-west routes of 10th and 14th, or it just seems like we should have a better defined route for parades that don't block traffic, so that all those others that I have and some people that I know who are adamantly opposed to anything downtown, they just don't like it. I think if we can improve our relationship with all the rest of the community by not blocking some of those routes during parade events, which are wonderful and great things, activities like you talked about all year long, but I think we could maybe work on a better route that stays within the parameters and doesn't disrupt the rest of the community. And I did talk to the downtown Sioux Falls people about it, but I would like to just put that on the radar, that I think that would be something that would really help the whole community support a healthy downtown. Okay, so then the last question is, I get this all the time, why is a healthy downtown important? I have my own answers, but I mean, all this energy and effort that you're spending, and it has been done in the past for years and decades and millions invested in downtown, I understand it and have my own answer. But Dustin, I'm asking you, if you were to explain it, somebody asked you the same question, why so much energy and effort should be spent on downtown, how would you answer it?
On a healthy downtown or just downtown in general?
Vibrant downtown, a healthy economic engine, whatever you want to refer to. Why so much energy on a plan for just downtown?
Well, I think one of the things that with downtowns is as your city grows, or your city grows as your downtown grows, and your downtown grows as your city grows. And one of the things that you see nationwide is that if you're in a city, they have that's really prospering, they have a great downtown. And as I believe it was Mike that stated this, but one of the things that we hear is that what's going to draw more and more of those young professionals, those young millennials, to come back to the city. So if they went to school here, maybe they left and they're coming back, or how do we retain them here in Sioux Falls instead of them moving somewhere else to do business? And one of the things that actually it states it in the vision statement, I believe, is that really downtowns are becoming just as important as your education, as your public safety within the town, to attract people to come and live in your town. So as really downtown grows and prospers, it really helps with the city to be one of those things that attract people to your city.
Very good. Thank you.
Councilor Erpenbach.
Thanks. I wanted to thank Dustin as well. I was, you'll see that my name is on the advisory committee, and I spent not nearly as much time on this project as a lot of people did. It's pretty amazing to see it all published. But to boil it down for you, when you're reading this, because I expect you to read it cover to cover before you vote next week, but I especially want you to spend time on pages 47 through 51, and I want you to really look at page 51. I want you to look at the long-term issues before you vote on this next week, counselors. Look at the long term. Take a broad vision of what this city can be based on what our downtown could be. And so that's just my words of wisdom for you, is at least spend a few minutes with that 4 or 5 pages so that you get that idea of, because this didn't come out of Dustin's head. This came out of the folks who live and work here, not only in downtown, but regionally. This group went out and found people who come downtown from other places besides Sioux Falls. And so I think this is a really important step. I think the idea that this plan, the 2015 plan, worked as well as it did is really only more incentive for us to make this one work as well. So thanks for your work. You really went above and beyond with this. Thanks, Dustin.
Councilor Anderson.
I'm glad we're not voting on this today, because I definitely will be spending the time going through this and reading this. So there's things in here that I've already seen that I like a lot, and there's a few that I question. So I think that we'll have a very vigorous discussion next week before we vote on this.
Okay. Councilor Erickson.
I like these kinds of reports because it's very detailed, and I appreciate your effort in this, and also appreciate the effort giving public the ability to give their vision and their ideas of what they'd like to see. I think it's so important that we continue to do that with everything that we offer with plans, whether it be this plan or the pool or whatever it might be. So I appreciate that effort. My question is as you had your board meeting and going forward with this, was it ever, how much of it was looked upon as what other communities are doing? What are other cities in South Dakota doing, or neighboring states, as far as what we want to do or not do? Sometimes by seeing what other communities do and fail is a great way to view it as well. So I'm just curious as far as what, if anything, was done to engage other communities, or just look at what other communities do.
Well, I think with our, with engaging the public and also, having an advisory committee and those citizen work groups, what they brought to the table was a lot of them had been to other downtowns, across the nation. And, they brought in ideas, that they saw at the old market area or, down in Omaha or Minneapolis or other cities that they've been to that worked great. And so they expressed those ideas to us through the process. We also looked at a number of downtown plans because one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we had in this plan was that implementation. We didn't want to just have a document with goals and recommendations, but no way to achieve those recommendations. And so we looked at different plans to see, how other cities had written an implementation, or just kind of, looked at ways in which to look at a phasing of all of these recommendations. And so we did look at other plans, but then we also, through our community engagement process, just having those individuals that have been to, and myself too, and everyone that had been a part of it, all had been to other downtowns that they've seen something specific that they really like to see. And so being able to have them voice their opinions is how we really accomplished looking at all those other cities.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Thank you for that, and I appreciate your answer. And one thing that I would hope as we move forward too is we take a look at what the downtown square in Rapid City has done. I'm sure you guys are probably tired of hearing me say it over and over, but they have done a fantastic job in their downtown area, and the economic development that has boomed around that square. They make money on ice skating outside. I mean, they've made a substantial amount. So I hope that we can look at something like that, because I think that's a big piece that's missing to our downtown to attract younger people to come and families to come as well. And then as I was looking at this briefly, and this is something I could say the next time we debate, but just as we move forward with the environmental, focusing our efforts on maybe some of the empty buildings as we move forward, making it look pretty and things of that sort. DM&E building comes to mind with that. And so I just look forward to how this shapes our community downtown and how it will be vibrant and grow, attracting some of the younger people to our downtown area and families, because I know there's a lot of families that like to live downtown as well. So thank you for your efforts. You've done an awesome job.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I just have one thing to add, and I'd encourage council to look at page 60. We're going to have a huge opportunity in front of us very soon. And again, coming from Austin, and to see what they did with a large area that was at one time a power plant, take a look at the public input and what is considered down there. And it'll be interesting. I'm not an urban planner or development professional, but we have a great opportunity coming forward. And it'll be exciting to see the options, and that's what I'm hoping that we see a lot of our options for what we can do down there. So thank you very much, Dustin. Great job. All righty, Councilor Staggers, you took a little trip, and you're going to have a presentation for us on that.
Well, first of all, before I start this afternoon, I should probably introduce my IT person here. This is Elijah Bird, and he's my grandson, and he's helped me quite a bit with this presentation. This is not a PowerPoint presentation, but it's a Prezi presentation. So, several months ago, I was privileged to attend the 10th annual meeting of the American Dream Coalition in Denver, Colorado. As with each meeting of the American Dream Coalition, we begin with a tour of the city in which we are meeting, focusing primarily on a couple of issues, focusing on transportation projects and also land use projects. In Denver, we began with the $1.5 billion remodel of the Union Station complex, which is the heart of the city's light rail system. And you can see here, this is very modernistic on the outside. And then in the center of the picture, you can see Union Station. They did a nice job refurbishing that too. We were briefed by one of the Rapid Transit District's board members about the light rail system in Denver. We learned mostly about the recently completed part of the light rail system, the west side, which goes from downtown Denver to Golden, Colorado. We learned that the projected cost was $43 million per mile. Actual cost, $60 million per mile. Projected boardings, 30,000 per day. Actual boardings, 11,500 per day. We also learned, of course, that there had to be some rezoning of the area where the light rail went through. And part of this rezoning brought about multi-story buildings to create greater density along the tracks, while at the same time banning businesses with drive-throughs. We actually rode the light rail to its western end in Golden, and here is the western end of it. When we got there, our bus was there to meet us. And from the west end, we traveled from Golden, Colorado to Boulder, Colorado. This aerial shot shows the beautiful setting of Boulder, home to the University of Colorado, and also home to many land regulations, and also a green belt surrounding the city that makes Boulder, Colorado one of the most expensive places to live in America. Another rather expensive place to live in the Denver area is the Stapleton area of Denver. Stapleton is where the old Denver Stapleton Airport used to be located at before the present airport was built. Focusing on new urban development or smart growth in the Stapleton area, we have in this picture here many aspects of smart growth. First of all, dense housing. You can see those houses are relatively new, but they're very close to each other. There are small yards or really no yards at all. And also with smart growth, there's the use of porches. The idea being that people will sit out on their porches, people be walking on their sidewalks, and they can converse with each other. With smart growth, there's an attempt to reduce the use of vehicles. However, I think you can see in this picture that hasn't been very successful yet. After our tour of the Denver metro area, we settled down to various presentation by a diverse group of people, some 30. You can see this includes professors, community activists, authors, lawyers, and members of various think tanks. Because of the limited time, I will focus on 3 presentations, beginning first of all with the Metropolitan Council. Now, some of you might be familiar with the Metropolitan Council. I'm talking about the Metro Council in the Twin Cities. The presentation on the Metropolitan Council was done by Catherine Kirsten, who is with the Center of the American Experiment, which is based in the Twin Cities. The Metropolitan Council covers 7 counties. You can see them here on this map, but it also includes 186 municipalities. The council itself consists of unelected officials, and this is something that sometimes can cause problems in the Twin Cities because sometimes the actions of the council override elected officials. It's not a particularly democratic body. The powers of the Metro Council in the cities, it acts like a metro planning organization, an MPO. It engages in regional planning, waste and water issues, housing, and also even taxes. Why am I mentioning this Metro Council in the cities? Well, in a sense, Lewis and Clark is somewhat like a Metro Council, consisting of unelected officials and run by 20 directors. And on this board of Lewis and Clark, we have 1 vote. And so, sometimes we have to be concerned that Sioux Falls, even though we spend a lot of money on Lewis and Clark and use a lot of the water, we can be outvoted. And also at the same time, the reason I'm bringing this up is maybe we can understand a little bit better about why Brandon is concerned about losing control over wastewater. That's the concern of many of these municipalities in the Twin Cities area, that they've lost control over different functions. The second presentation I'd like to mention deals with Westchester County, New York. Where's Westchester County, New York? Well, it's the county just north of New York City. Approximately 1 million people live there, and it's a very diverse county. Some 50% of the people are white, and then the rest are various ethnicities. The presenter in this presentation was Cornelius Morose, a resident of Westchester County. And what she focused on was what the federal government's housing and urban development was dealing with Westchester County in trying to test out a new rule that HUD has come up with. And this new rule is called the Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Rule. This rule is designed to try to make sure there is the mixing of racial groups and the mixing of the rich and poor groups within the county of Westchester. We've got a little bit ahead of here on the slides, but now you can keep it there, Aisha. I think this is probably one of the reasons why Westchester is being looked at by HUD, because there are a number of very expensive mansions within the Westchester area. But as the people of Westchester would also like to focus on, there's also many diverse groups and many people of middle income and even lower income. This rule, this Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing Rule, was published September 26, 2014, so just a couple of months ago, in the Federal Registry. Final comment on the rule was November 25th, 2014, so just a few days ago. This rule will be going into effect and will affect Sioux Falls, because we have a situation here where the feds are becoming more involved in land zoning and wanting to make sure that neighborhoods are fully integrated. Possibly, they want to maybe make a better mix of the rich and poor here in Sioux Falls. Also, different races, they might want to try to make sure there's a better mix of that in Sioux Falls. So this is something we might be anticipating in the near future. The final presenter I'd like to mention is Lawrence McQuillan. He's from the Independent Institute in San Francisco. Now, to really understand his perspective, we have here the title of a piece that he wrote entitled Highway Robbery, How Your Taxes Subsidize the California Lifestyle. Well, how do our taxes subsidize the California lifestyle? Well, he focused on the Highway Trust Fund. Every time we buy gasoline, we pay 18.4 cents per gallon. And of course, this money goes into a trust fund and is supposed to be for highways and bridges. However, he contends that this is becoming a slush fund for surface transportation, anything but roads and bridges. And that means we have a lot of this trust fund money being used for mass transit. And he gave a very good example in the San Francisco Bay Area. In 2013, $1 billion was spent from the trust fund in the Bay Area. What on? Walkways, bike paths, scenic overlooks, and even local government purchasing land for open space. Why am I mentioning this? Well, because the more money that's taken out of the trust fund for non-highway projects means less money for highways and bridges. And of course, that affects South Dakota highways, like South Dakota Highway 100, and also the building of city streets. In fact, it's even anticipated in this upcoming legislative session in Pierre that we're probably going to be having some increased taxes in South Dakota to pay for some more highways and bridges. Finally, I would like to show two other slides. This is a bridge over the Columbia River from Portland, Oregon to Vancouver, Washington. Portland, Oregon is on the bottom of the slide. Vancouver is in the upper portion of the slide. Why am I showing you this slide? Well, something unique happened here just very recently. That maybe I should also point out that that bridge there is I-5 that goes from San Diego up to Seattle. But there's no parallel bridge to the I-5 bridge there. For many years, there was an attempt to build a parallel bridge to the I-5 bridge to allow light rail to go from Portland, they have light rail in Portland, to Vancouver. The cost of the projected bridge was $4 billion. However, as of May 2014, the bridge project was canceled, officially canceled because of citizen opposition. When you have two governments, like the government of Oregon and the government of Washington State, wanting a bridge and the citizens stopping it, that doesn't happen very often at all. The next slide I'd like to show you is of the Rochester City Lines. And this is a privately owned bus line in Rochester, Minnesota. The Rochester City Lines used to operate all the bus service in Rochester. And then we had the city taking over a lot of the bus lines. However, this private bus line has continued to operate in Rochester. Does a lot of busing for commuters into Rochester. But why am I showing you this slide? What does this have to do with Sioux Falls? Well, a couple of the members of the family that owns this private bus line were at the conference in Denver. And I learned that they used to own a private bus line here in Sioux Falls. In fact, they owned the last privately owned bus line in Sioux Falls in 1979 is when they left Sioux Falls. And then that's when the city of Sioux Falls took over the bus service in Sioux Falls itself. Well, now, at this time, does anybody have any questions at all? Anybody?
Councilors? Councilor Staggers, thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, thank you
Appreciate
very
your
much.
Presentation. and
Sure.
Your tech support also.
Yeah, that really enhanced it.
All right, council, there being no more business before us, we will adjourn.